Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining um, our new features webinar today. So the purpose of this call is to cover some new features. Some of these have been released already. Some of them are going to be released soon. Specifically, we're going to be covering some environmental data, which is a new feature that's going to be released in the coming weeks. We're still finalizing the development of that feature, but I want to show you guys some screenshots and kind of what to expect with that. So let's get into it. And just so you know, the format of today's call, I'll be going through the demo, kind of covering everything that you see here on the agenda. I'll keep everyone on mute for the time being. Feel free to post any questions you have in the chat or in the Q&A, and I'll either answer those live during the demo, or I'll save it for the end. We have some time at the end to answer any questions that you have, and I'll unmute everyone at the end of the call, and you can ask your questions then, or again, just post them in the chat or the Q&A section of the Zoom meeting, and I'll try to answer them the best that I can. So just to kind of cover a brief overview of what we're going to be going through today. So purchase orders for non-cannabis inventory, we'll cover the process and what that looks like. That's already released to everyone, so you can start using that as of today. The storefront, so this is a customer-facing storefront where the inventory within your Canix platform is put onto a customer-facing shop where you can upload images, descriptions of your products, including like test results, things like that, and give access to your customers so they can place sales orders based on the inventory that you currently have. So instead of having a salesperson reach out to your customers, you give them access to the storefront, and they can kind of create sales orders as needed, as they need product. Another thing we're going to cover is kind of a minor feature, but I think it's important. So for those of you that are connected to Metric, there is a pending approval function within Canix. So anytime that a user with that permission set, or that restriction set, I should say, where they require a review on submission. So before the submission leaves Canix, it goes into kind of a holding space in Canix, where it needs to be approved by an admin before it's actually synced to Metric. So now, up to this point, that's only been confined to Canix itself. There's not really any indication. It's kind of up to the admin or the manager to go into pending approvals in Canix and see what needs to be approved, confirm that, and push it through, or deny it if the information is incorrect. Now we have email notifications set up. So anytime that somebody submits something, goes into pending approval, you as an admin are going to get that notification in your email, where you can link to Canix and approve that submission and any others. So it's just kind of a helpful way to keep track of, who's submitting what, and rather than having to navigate in Canix and try to find those submissions. We'll also cover briefly the ability to create sales orders from inventory availability. So the availability report is super important for salespeople to kind of see what they have on hand, which is not reflected necessarily of their active inventory, more so the active inventory plus whatever's been reserved for other customers. So instead of having, up to this point, it's been, you would have two tabs open, you have the inventory availability, and you have your sales order, and you're kind of comparing the two and seeing what you have. Now you can just create sales orders directly from that screen based on what inventory you have. We'll also touch on universal tag search, which we've covered in a couple of our past new features webinars. Just something I think is really important and super helpful as far as like navigating and finding tags. There's a lot of places for tags to be in some cases, specifically with like plants and packages. So this just helps kind of navigate the platform a little bit easier, a little bit more efficiently. And the last thing we'll touch on is environmental data. So we recently developed a integration with a few environmental sensor companies. So this includes, tracking the temperature, the humidity, things like that within your facility. So these are separate softwares that have those sensors in place, that specific software. And now we have an integration with those different softwares, those different companies to see that data in Canix and kind of make sense of it. So that way you have everything kind of all in one place. So again, we'll cover all this stuff in more detail. If you all have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat or the Q&A, or we can save them to the end of the call and talk through them in more detail. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, we're going to start with purchase orders. So this is a new feature that, again, is already available to everyone on the call. As of right now, this is kind of the first iteration of this function within Canix, and it specifically relates to non-cannabis inventory. So purchasing jars, if you're a processor, you're purchasing jars, stickers, lids, things like that. Maybe, cones for pre-rolls, stuff like that. And you'll be able to track those purchases as they come in and create that non-cannabis inventory via these purchase orders. The next phase, the next iteration of this is going to include cannabis inventory as well. So if you're tracking, obviously you have the incoming transfers, things like that, but the purchase orders will also include cannabis inventory moving forward once we get to that phase in development. So you can track the sales and the COGS of all that inventory as it kind of moves through your platform. So the first thing I'll touch on here, so purchase orders, this lives under our sales module here in the navigation bar. Before we go into purchase orders though, I do want to touch on creating vendors. So the whole purchase orders process is similar to the way that sales orders function today, in that instead of having a customer, you have a vendor, but building the sales order, building the purchase order is very similar. So before we actually create a purchase order or go into that, let me touch on actually creating a vendor. So there's a couple ways to do this. As there is with sales orders, you can create the customer directly from the sales order. Same thing applies with purchase orders. You can create the vendor from the purchase order. My suggestion would be to create those vendors ahead of time, so that way that dropdown populates automatically, which I'll touch on in just a second. So creating a vendor, you're going to go to admin here on the left, and then facility data. And this is included with your locations, items, and strains, which many of you should be familiar with. And we can click into vendors, and very simple process. This shows all of our active vendors. Again, this is similar to that current customers list. It shows all the customers you have that are active. And we can click into this and one of those vendors and see, information about that vendor, or we can create our own here. So vendor name or the DBA, vendor ID, if you have kind of internal tracking for your vendors. And then of course, contact information, addresses, notes. The important thing here at the bottom though, is the minimum lead time. So obviously this is going to differ from facility to facility. If you're working with a vendor and when I place an order or request for product, it's going to take 1 to 2 weeks, right? Or 5 to 10 business days, something like that. You can record that as part of this vendor's profile and have that information in Canix. So if I working with the par of that non-cannabis inventory, once you get to that par level, then going into your vendors, you're creating the purchase order, that you need to place that order pretty quickly depending on what that lead time is. So if you're very low on product, you have a lead time of 2 or 3 days, 5 to 10 days, whatever it is, and you can set that per vendor here. So if I click into the Victor vendor here, you can see we've got the information filled out here, minimum lead time of 2 days. So again, very straightforward, just creating those vendors, and similar to the way locations, items, and strains work. It's kind of we're populating a dropdown within Canix here, and the same applies to vendors. So once we have our vendors in place, we can actually create a purchase order. So let me go back to our purchase order screen here. You can see I've got one already set for Victor vendor, and let's go ahead and create a purchase order. So as I said before, there's a couple ways to create a vendor. If you have a vendor that has not been input into that facility data section, you can always create it directly from here, and it's going to bring you to that same screen, the same pop-up, enter the information, and they're going to populate in that drop-down. So again, very similar for those of you that are familiar with the sales order process, you can see this is very similar to that, those same steps. So in this case, I'll go ahead and choose Vector Vendor, and you can see all the information there that populates. And as I mentioned before, this is specific to non-cannabis inventory for now. And as we type in, what product am I going to add to this purchase order, I can see what I currently have in my inventory. And that's kind of helpful just to know, and this is pulled directly from the non-cannabis inventory quantities. So let's say I want to order some eighth jars. I can select that here. I would enter the pricing. And again, similar to the way the sales orders work, because I've purchased this product from this vendor before, the pricing is populating automatically. So before I purchased each one of these jars for 56 cents a piece. So I want to take 500 of those, enter that here. It's going to calculate out the pricing. And then we have the requested delivery date. So again, this is important to consider that lead time. So let's say I need that by July 2nd. Enter the payment terms, payment date, internal notes, if those are applicable. So in this instance, I can continue adding other products. So if I need stickers and lids and everything like that, I can create that purchase order in that way. So once I click create here, similar to the way that sales orders work, you can see that I have a few more options now. Once I click that create button. So if we scroll down here, we can see that we have the create RFQ option and download quote. So basically what this is a request for quote, request for quotation. So this is what I can send to my vendor and say, this is what I need. Here's when I need it. Here's how much I'm paying based on what was entered before. So it's very, very standard information here. Who is it going to be delivered to? Who am I trying to purchase this from? Once they approve that, and this obviously is handled external of Canix, once they approve that, then that order is sent and it's received. Once you receive that physically, then you can always open this order back up. Let me go and click save here. Click back, and you can see I now have that purchase order here, 002. I can click into that. It's been, it's July 2nd. Those products have been received, and I can go ahead and click receive products here. So once I do that, I'm going to see all of the products that I entered on a purchase order initially. I'll have those as options to select to receive. And once I click receive, then I have the option to split them, to give them a lot number and pull in that inventory into my non-cannabis inventory. So this ties into the new kind of workflow for non-cannabis inventory, where you have kind of a non-cannabis item name. And then as you bring in product, that comes with its own lot number. So you have a total quantity, and then you have the lots or the, as that product is purchased at different dates that comes in, and you can click into each of those non-cannabis inventory items and see those different lots. And that's how we're going to set this here. That's how that ties into this purchase order function. So in this case, I can set that to 0420 711, add in any notes, and then accept that. And once I do that, that's going to pull in that non-cannabis inventory. So now I have an additional 500 units of those eighth jars based on what I just received from this vendor. So just to kind of touch on that non-cannabis inventory function briefly, let me pull up those eighth jars that I just did so we can click into here. So I'm in my non-cannabis inventory list. So I can click into my eighth jar here. And I can see, as I was mentioning before, this is kind of the non-cannabis inventory name. Here's my total available quantity. And then here are the lots included in that quantity. So I have that 2449 plus the 500, and that gives me my total available quantity. So as you create purchase orders and receive inventory, it's still going to relate to the same purchase or the same non-cannabis item with its own specific lot, so that we can track, as these products come in. All right. So the next thing I want to touch on is our Canix storefront. So the first place I'll start here is our shop configuration. And so what this is based on, this is per facility for now. You give it a shop name, you set the password, and then you can set the shop URL. So when a customer goes to this URL, they're going to be asked to enter a password. So again, this is restricted to whomever you give access to this URL to see your product, to see what you have available. And it's all set internally in Canix. And the way that you input inventory onto that shop, that internal shop, if we go into our active packages, we have a column here. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, let me click over here real quick. So we have a column here called marked available. So super simple to do. You can select the specific packages, obviously multi-select with the Control Shift function in Canix, and you can mark these specific products as available. So this is a manual designation. You can also set it to update automatically based on the test results, based on the testing status. So if the sample or the products associated with the sample are set to submitted for testing, you can choose to leave those off automatically. And then once they come back and the test status, the lab test status is set to test passed, you can configure Canix to automatically add those to your available inventory, to your marked available for your shop. As you can see here, we've got some checkboxes on some of this inventory. So what I'll do here is go to from here, and in order to mark your inventory as available, you can select those, toggle availability, and that's going to mark those packages as available and add to that available quantity on your customer-facing shop. Once that's done, once you have those items added, those packages, you can come to listing management here under inventory. And this is where you're going to update the description of the product, upload images, and make any kind of changes you want to that listing itself on your shop. So if you click into my Spring Hill Kush, you can see I've got my picture here. I've got the description, it's enabled, and I can go ahead and leave that as it is. So based on what we have here, these few items, when your customers log into your customer-facing shop, this is what they're going to see. So you can see we have a couple examples here of product with a photo, product with a logo, and product with nothing on it, with no kind of imagery. And then we can click into each of these and see the details about it. So these details, again, are pulled from that description that you've set internally in that listing management page in Canix. So again, this can include test results, descriptions about the strain, how it was grown, whatever information you want to convey to your customers, you can set that within that listing management page, along with the photo itself. And the quantity, this is going to be pulled directly from Canix automatically. So as you create packages of the specific product, it's tested, it comes back as test passed, upload the images. That's what's going to show up here. And that will add to the quantity. And your customers, once they find something that they like, they can add it just like any other online shop works. They can add, what they want to purchase. 50 ounces here, add to cart. And you'll notice that there's no pricing on here. And that's because pricing can differ from customer to customer. So just seeing what you have, and they have that kind of pricing information that you guys have worked out previously. So once they add that to the cart, they can click into their cart and see what they've got added there, and then go to checkout. And they'll have their information entered here, and that's going to tie into the existing facility that you have, the existing customer that you have set up already. And so that'll show up in your sales orders. And from there, it's just a matter of allocating the packages, sending it out, creating the transfer, everything like that. So it's really creating a template of the sales order along with the quantity that they want. And then you would just adjust and set the pricing kind of as needed, as you would a typical sales order. So if I click into sales orders here, we can open, any one of these. It'll come in as that sales order that just needs those packages allocated. So if I click into this one, for instance, you can see it'll come in as such without the allocated packages, and you'll just need to allocate those packages kind of as needed. All right. So as you can see, there's tons of opportunity for customization for that online shop, whether it's the URL, the photos that you attach to the products, or the description of those products themselves. And again, you have control over who can access that URL. It's set with a password. So one thing I don't think I mentioned in that shop section under inventory, this is where you'd set the password for your shop. So they go to the URL, they're asked to enter the password. You've already provided that to them via email, and then they enter that and now have access to create that sales order. Oh, cool. So from there, the next thing I want to touch on is the pending approval email notifications. So as I mentioned before, for those of you that are connected to Metric, we do have a setting in Canix that you can apply per user. That's called requires review on submission. So Canix integrates with Metric. Anytime that you update the growth phase of a plant, split a package, change locations, things like that, that information is synced to Metric via the API. And in most cases, it's very difficult to change that once it's been submitted. So whether you're onboarding to Canix or you're new to Canix and still trying to, kind of understand the workflows and kind of how everything functions together, or you have a new hire that is still getting familiar with the Canix platform, that setting is super useful in that, they can be free to do whatever they need to. And then it's up to the admin or the manager to approve those submissions before they're actually sent to Metric. Because again, it's very difficult to update, to change that information. Sometimes it's not possible at all without contacting Metric directly to update, to change something, change an error that was submitted. So what that requires of you on submission permission allows you to do is kind of have a checkpoint for those things before they're submitted. So with that, we've now added the ability to receive email notifications. So if you're an admin, an owner, a manager, right, that needs to keep track of who's submitting what needs to be approved or denied, and kind of just reviewing those things before they're sent through, you're now going to be able to receive email notifications detailing what those submissions are anytime that they happen. And then you can always review, what that list entails, the total list, not just a per submission. So just to kind of show you what that looks like, I've got an email pulled up, and let me show you what the permission looks like exactly in user management. So if I click in the user management here, I myself have a couple profiles set up. So if I click on to my work email, I can see receive submission approval emails. So again, anytime that somebody submits something and they're marked as requires review on submissions, as you can see here, I'm going to receive an email where I can then click a link. It's going to pull up my pending approvals tab in Canix, and then I can approve those. As I mentioned before, up to this point, this has been something that admins, managers, owners have had to kind of monitor. So here under admin and Metric submissions, I can see pending approval. And then you can see, I don't have any here, but this is where I'd see all of my pending submissions. And it's really a matter of being diligent and looking into this maybe at the end of the day, in the morning after a full day's work from your employees, and you would come in here and verify the information is correct, approve or deny those submissions. Now, anytime that happens, as soon as it happens, you can receive an email very simple email, just showing one or more submissions are pending approval for this facility. And then it allows you to click into that pending approvals tab or to update your notification preferences. So again, if I click into that, it's going to bring me right back to my pending metric submissions tab here and show me exactly what I'm looking for. And the one that I sent that through was actually my other license here. I believe it was this one. Again, this is super important for, you're busy, you're not trying to monitor the pending approvals tab, you get those notifications. Maybe you just go through it at the end of the day, find those emails, approve those submissions. So again, just kind of an ease of use thing, making the whole process a little bit more efficient. All right. So the next thing I want to touch on is the ability to create sales orders from your inventory availability report. So let me click into our inventory availability. So we're getting some lag here. I'm sure if that's internet. Okay, there we go. And let me click into our other license here. Okay, so many of you should be familiar with the inventory availability report. This is a kind of overview of all of the inventory that you have in that specific facility. This differs from the active packages screen in that each of the items, so with one item, for instance, like our Skywalker OG bulk flower, we have a total of 532 pounds on hand, but we only have 502 available because we have so much ordered, we have so much allocated that kind of takes away from that total. The way that this creating a sales order from this screen works is you would, as a salesperson, you have somebody on the phone, you have an email, whatever it is, you can search this inventory availability report. As long as all the salespeople are kind of keeping up with creating their sales orders, adding items to their sales orders, just kind of keeping up with it in general, you can see what you have available and create a sales order directly from here. So for instance, if I have, third dimension master and half pounds, I can go to actions, create sales order, and see exactly and create that sales order directly from there. And then obviously adjust the pricing and what I'm actually selling to this customer, what I'm actually adding to the invoice directly from there. So again, a lot of times the salespeople are not working from active packages because that can include, bulk packages that have not been split out. If you're a processor, right, you have, bulk flour, you have bulk trim, and you also have eighths or whatever. And your salespeople are only trying to sell your eighths. So that's why it's important to use that inventory availability where they can search through those products and see what they actually have and they create that order directly from there. So similar to the storefront, as the orders come in, as you create sales orders from inventory availability, you're going to create them from here, update the pricing, the quantities, all that kind of stuff, and just go through the typical sales process from there. So allocating the packages, creating the transfer, and then sending it out. So it just makes that process a little bit easier for your salespeople. Okay, the next thing I want to touch on is the universal tag search. So this is helpful not just for tags, but also just for navigating Canix in general. So as you can see, we've added quite a few sections within the navigation bar here on the left. Within plants, within sales, we've added, full-on modules here like task management. So navigating Canix can be a little bit tricky if you're new to it and you don't know how to, you haven't really gotten comfortable with navigating. So using the search bar is not only good for searching for tags, but you can also search for, flowering plants, things like that. You can type that in and go directly to that section of the platform. So if I go to packages or split package, it's going to bring me directly to that screen. I can click into active, and it's going to pull me to that active packages screen. In addition, you can search for specific tag numbers here. So if I type in 0420, for instance, you can see I've got a few tags. This is my demo account, so I have a few licenses, but more than likely you have 1 or 2 licenses. So you know your processing versus cultivation, versus whichever licenses you have. And you can see once I type in the last 4 of that tag number, I can click into, okay, I'm looking for the 0420 package in that tag, and I can click go to tag. It's going to bring me directly to where I need to be related to that package. Because this is important, because especially with packages, you have a few different designations: active, unallocated, allocated, transferred, or deactivated. So if you have a physical tag in front of you, you're not sure where it is, you can use that universal tag search to get directly to where you need to be. Okay, so just a quick little thing there, super helpful. The last thing I want to touch on, and something that I'm super excited about, and something that you will go into in more depth in the coming weeks as we kind of finalize, again, the development of this integration and kind of what this whole module looks like. So I'm going to share with you some screenshots of the environmental data. So this is, and let me first talk through kind of how to set this up. This is an integration similar to LeafLink or Metric, right? This is an integration with existing software companies. So this is going to live in this integrations page under admin. And you can see we have environmental controls as a new integrator. So we have LeafLink, OnFleet, QuickBooks. If we click into this, you can see we have integrations with GrowLink, with TrollMaster, and we have a few others as well that we're going to be integrating with, including, let's see here. Yeah, including a couple others. But it's very simple, very straightforward. You would enter in your username, password, API key if it's required, and then the device. So what these companies are, for those of you that don't know, these are software companies that provide hardware and software for tracking the humidity, controlling your lights, the temperature of your grow rooms. They each have their own, kind of functionality. So if you're using these currently, or you're looking for kind of environmental control software to put into your facility, this is a good start, especially since you're using Canix already and we have integrations with them. It's going to be super helpful to kind of track that stuff on a day-to-day basis, the humidity, the temperature, and let me show you what that looks like here. So let me pull up the preview here. So these are just screenshots of kind of what this looks like currently and what it's going to be built out in the functionality. So you can see there's a few things here. Oops. So environmental controls, the screen we're just on, you can see this is how you're going to connect those things, the two softwares, Canix and TrollMaster, GrowLink, and then you can map to the facility along with the sensor, the device ID. So again, these are companies that you would implement sensors into your facility, into your grow rooms to track that humidity, the temperature, the lighting, whatever functionality you need within your rooms, you can track that with that software, and we can pull that into Canix. So with this rooms overview, and let me move this Zoom banner out of my way here. So this is just kind of showing a snapshot of what your rooms look like as of right now. So this is pulled up directly from those softwares. You can see last updated 2 minutes ago. So you can refresh that and see exactly where you're at. Again, without having to go into 2 separate pieces of software, it's all contained within Canix. You can see that data here. In addition, you can click into that and see, the current temperature, humidity. You can see trends. So maybe there's a heat wave where your facility is, and you can kind of see those trends. Heat wave, maybe the first freeze of the year, whatever it is, and you can see kind of what those changes look like. And then obviously use this information to dictate how you cope with that moving forward, right? So you can see the temperature, humidity, CO2, and light, all that is tracked. You can see the trends. You can click on specific dates and kind of drill down into the data, or click into, let me just see what my lights, what the lumens were, what the temperature was on a specific date. You can also update the evaluation period. So you can see last 7 days, last 30 days, today, things like that. And you can see all the plants that are being tracked and how they're being tracked. So you can see the average light, average humidity, average temperature per plant. And then again, this is recorded via those sensors that are included with those other software programs. And then you can see on a plant basis, you can dig into the specific plant. You can see AK-47. It's been in, its age is 1961 days, which is a very old plant. But you can see just trends, per plant. You can see the plant batch that it is a part of, along with any children that are created from that. So this is important for, if you have mothers on site that you're creating clones from, you can see how those mothers are doing, and then also how their children are doing. How are the plants, how are the clones that came from this mother, how are they doing generally, and kind of compare that data. Then you can see also the packages here by subcategory, environmental trends, how those relate to the packages that are created. So tracking the plants themselves as they're growing, and then also tying that into the harvest itself. Once those plants are harvested, what does that harvest detail kind of look like? What was packaged? How much did we sell it for? And this really gives you insight into how those environmental controls affect that harvest, affect the packages created from the harvest, and obviously ultimately your bottom line. How much money you're making from this harvest, how is that affected by humidity all the way from the very beginning, where the plants came from, how they're being grown, the kind of environment that they're growing in. So super cool. This is something I'm really excited about. So if you haven't already, definitely sign up for the upcoming new features webinars. We'll have more to show with that. Again, these are just screenshots for now, but I can tell you this is going to be game changing. I love it. I love being able to see this data and giving these tools to our customers to really action on, because this is the stuff that's really important. It's easy to get bogged down with the tracking of plants. I went here, went there. What's super important here is tracking, this plant grew from here to here. Sure, I know where it is. I know where it's been. How is it making me money? How am I profiting from this plant? How can I do better and just, build my business even more? And this data that we're going to be providing to you is going to help kind of give you insight into what that looks like. So again, super excited to show you all more of that. Along with a couple other new features that are coming out, including ability to assign inventory to salespeople. So a certain percentage of specific inventory. If you have a robust sales team, you can say, you can assign inventory percentages. So this person gets this much of our flower that's created. This person gets this much of our pre-rolls. Many other features that are coming up. So excited to show you all that. Okay. I'll go ahead and open, the chat has been open, the Q&A as well. I don't see any questions in here just yet, but I'll go ahead and mark everyone as allowed to talk. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask them here. We've got a few minutes. We've got about 15 minutes. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them and give you clarification on anything that we've covered. Okay, that's a good sign. I feel like I got all the information out that I needed, no questions. So that means that I explained everything thoroughly, at least I hope. what I'll do as well, I'm going to share, I'll send out an email, a follow-up email with a recording of this call. I've been recording this. That way you can share it with the team, review it for later. And again, definitely, I'll include a link to register for the upcoming webinars as well. So that way you guys can stay up to date with new features and upcoming features from Canix. So I appreciate everyone hopping on today. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.